At American University, we don't just hope for change, we create it. We don't just dream of a better world, we make it a reality. With a graduate degree from AU, you'll access expert faculty and connections throughout DC to develop skills and experience to turn your passion into purpose. And that purpose can make all the difference in your career. Discover the difference a degree makes at american.edu/grad school.
Stream us live at saga960am.ca. You are listening to New Theory Radio.
Hello and welcome to another edition of New Theory Radio, here live on News Talk Saga 960 AM. My name is Nav Nanwa. I am your host, and this is the show we theorize on all things current affairs, pop culture, and everyday life. Happy International Women's Day to everyone that is celebrating, which should be everybody today, because it's a very important day to be acknowledging the wonderful contributions of all the women in the world. And we are celebrating that here on this week's edition of New Theory Radio. It is a special International Women's Day episode of New Theory Radio. We are going to be talking about a few things on today's episode, and I'm going to be joined by some really good friends of mine, all from across different industries. They're absolutely killing it across the board when it comes to broadcast journalism, when it comes to PR, when it comes to music, when it comes to arts and culture. All of these wonderful women that are going to be joining me for the next hour and a half are going to share some of their perspectives. And the individuals that will be joining me will be my good friend from my Rogers TV days, and you might see her on the evening news. She's absolutely killing it. Is my friend Ginella Massa, who will be joining me in studio to help me theorize on a few topics, as well as my really good friend. She is a well-known local musician and singer here in the Mississauga community. Heather Christine is also going to be joining us. And then last but not least, she is a music PR extraordinaire from Indoor Recess. It is my homie, Ola Mazzuca. All three of these women are going to be joining me to talk about different topics relevant to International Women's Day. The first is the actual hashtag for this year's International Women's Day, which is hashtag each for equal. And I'd love to get all three of them to chime in on what this hashtag really means to them, because the whole purpose of this hashtag is really to explain the concept of this year's International Women's Day, which is really an equal world is an enabled world. And I love to get all three of them to chime in on that, and whether they feel that's applicable to their current roles, their current industries, some of the things that they're seeing across the board when it comes to the opportunities that are being given to women, and whether opportunities are truly being enabled. And then I'd love to get their perspectives on another interesting topic of discussion that's been related to International Women's Day, and that's whether or not IWD is becoming corporate, or is becoming, actually I saw an article in The Guardian that referred to it as Corporate Mother's Day, because there's so many brands and companies that are now trying to join in on the conversation when it comes to IWD. You know, it's McDonald's recently flipped their arches to signify a W. You've had other organizations do targeted ads to women trying to celebrate International Women's Day, but also selling products. So I'd love to get their perspectives on that. And then last but not least, I want to talk bias. And there's an interesting report that came out from the Global UN talking about that 90% of men still hold some form of bias against women. And according to that same study, 90% of women also hold a bias to other women, which I found pretty intriguing. And I'd love to get all three of them to chime in on that, and whether they agree with that study, whether they disagree, whether they're truly surprised by some of these results. And then we'll just go deep from there. And then a little later, for our community segment of the show, we're actually going to be joined by a local personal trainer here in the community. His name is Avi Sohi, and he is part of Gravity Athletics, as well as the Trinity Collective. He is a personal trainer that works with many different clients, and he has a very holistic approach to physical education and personal training. And I thought it'd be great to get Avi to come on the show to talk about his specific approach, but as well, I'd love to get his thoughts on some of the fitness fads that we've been seeing in the market lately. You know, in my area where I live, which is close to Mississauga, there are a lot of F45s popping up, a lot of Orange Theories popping up as well. and it seems like everyone now is trying to join one of these fad gyms because they're quick, they're easy, they're straight to the point, and they really allow their members to feel a sense of accomplishment when it comes to working out hard for 45 minutes or an hour. But there are some purists in the fitness area that feel like these types of gimmicks or these types of franchises or these types of companies are not doing fitness justice. So I'd love Avi to provide some theories on that and whether he agrees or disagrees with these new models. But that's going to be later in the show. We are predominantly going to be focusing on International Women's Day. So when I come back from commercial break, we're going to be joined by Ginella, Heather, and Ola, and we are going to get things started here on New Theory Radio on News Talk Saga 960 AM. And we are back here on New Theory Radio, here live on News Talk, Saga 960 AM. My name is Nav Nanwa. I am your host, and this is the show where we theorize on all things current affairs, pop culture, and everyday life. And it is International Women's Day, and I'm super honored to be surrounded by some amazing women who are truly killing it in their specific industries. And we're going to talk about many different topics related to IWD. But before we do that, I would like to introduce who these wonderful women are. So I'm going to start with the individual in front of me. She is someone that I actually had my start with back in the day in Rogers TV Peel, and now she's absolutely killing it, sort of in the Toronto area. Can I mention where you work or no?
Yeah, okay. Of course you can. Please,
on
plug away.
You
can watch us weeknights 5, 6, and 11.
Yes. Go watch Ginella every night on CityTV. It is, my good friend Ginella Massa. Ginella, thanks for finally making it.
You're acting like you were trying to pin me down for so long.
No, but your schedule...
As soon as you asked me, I said yes.
But your schedule's crazy. Your schedule's nuts.
It is crazy, but I'm always happy to make time for you.
Awesome.
And it is such a joy to be, behind the mic again with you and sharing. I was going to say a stage, a table. I don't know how
whatever this is.
But yeah, we use for Cable 10.
I know. This
live.
is like a way back playback, and I'm happy we're finally doing it. And I know you brought me on TV last year to talk about April Fools.
That's
and I'm
right.
Like, let me bring you on and talk about International Women's Day.
Every time I have you on, I'm like, why aren't you on TV more? And then I listen to you, I'm like, this is amazing. I love this.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And then sitting beside you is another one of my homies. She is from Indoor Recess. She is an awesome music publicist. She's been actually responsible for a number of different guests here on New Theory Radio. And I always told her, I'm like, I got to get you on the show because we always have some really dope conversations. It is my good friend Ola Mazzuca. Ola, what's up? How's it going?
I'm well. How are you?
You made it. You were like terrified. You were going to you called me and be like, oh, I'm going to be there right at 5. And I told you not to worry.
I know. Yeah, I was glad to hear that we were on the road at the same time. So it worked out. But I'm so honored to be here. I'm glad that we finally made it happen. And, thanks for your support. It's been great to connect with you. And it's a great program. I'm honored to be surrounded by incredible people.
Yeah. And we're so grateful to have you. And last but not least, we have someone who is a mainstay, I would say, in the Mississauga area. Someone very well known. She is, can we mention how you work for Visual Arts Mississauga too?
Sure, of course.
Yeah, she is a strong supporter of the arts and culture scene here. She is a musician herself. Just came out with an album last year.
Yes.
And I remember you telling me there's a song on there that's for International Women's Day or for women, right?
Absolutely,
Empowerment?
It's a song called Our Time Has Come.
Yes. And that's why when I thought about putting this show together, I'm like, I got to get her on because she's so deep into what women's empowerment's all about. Is my good friend and great supporter of the show, Heather Christine. Heather, thanks so much for joining us.
Oh, thank you. I'm so honored to be here, Nav, and thank you for all that you're doing to help support artists in Mississauga, Peel Region, and beyond. We appreciate it.
We need more platforms and we need more opportunities for people to share their stories. And I'm very honored for all three of you to come on today's episode to do that. And again, it is an important day. I think all three of you have been at various events all throughout the day celebrating International Women's Day, which is super important. And I wanted to just reflect on this year's theme when it comes to International Women's Day. And the hashtag this year is Each for Equal. And it's really around an equal world is an enabled world. And we'd love to get all three of you because we got in the room right now, we got broadcast journalism, we got PR, and we got arts and culture, as well as just music in general. And I would love to sort of gauge what each of you think about this theme and what it really means to you. And also, do you agree with this theme? Because there's a couple of people that I've even talked to throughout the week where when I asked them about what this hashtag means to them, a lot of them are kind of stumped. They're not too sure. They're not too sure as to whether it's still something relevant today, considering the movements that have been made by women, throughout the last couple of years. Or some feel like maybe there should be others, more specific themes involved with this year. But we'd love to get some thoughts, and maybe Ginella, will begin with you because you're sitting right in front of me.
Yeah, I mean, I always, a lot of times when you talk about equality versus equity, and I think that's really important, is understanding that equal doesn't always mean same. People have different needs, and we're talking about men and women, but we also have to understand intersectionality. If you're a person of color, if you're, able-bodied or not, all of these things also impact your access to things, whether it's education or jobs or whatever. So I don't know if you've ever seen this drawing that kind of exemplifies this really well, and it shows the difference between equality and equity, and it shows three people standing at a fence, and you see the three heights, and so one person can see over the fence, the other person can just barely see over the fence, and the third person is too short and they can't see over the fence.
Wow.
Right? And they take a next picture and they put them each on a box, and they show this is equality. We gave each person a box to stand on, right, so that they could see over the fence. But the person at the end still can't see over the fence because they're still too short.
Wow.
And then in the third photo, they take all three boxes and they put them under the shortest person, because the two people could still see over the fence, and the third one needed three boxes to see over the fence.
Wow.
So it's the idea that not everyone needs exactly the same thing in order to achieve or in order to have access to things, right? So I think it's really important to actually understand that it doesn't always mean giving everyone the same thing. It means understanding that some people need something different, some people need more help, some people need a step up or a hand reached out to them to be able to access these things. And whether we're talking about women or people of color or whatever it is, I think it's really important to think about things from an equity lens as opposed to just an equality lens.
And I'm glad that you touched on that, because that has been a lot of the focus is, okay, well, we're going to let women do this. And it's like one thing to say it and promote that. But to your point, when you actually dig a bit deeper, it's still not enough. Like, there's still more that needs to be considered.
I mean, just to say, okay, we're going to have gender parity on, boards or in government or whatever. So just giving a woman the job maybe isn't enough. Maybe we need to figure out how do we mentor women to make sure that they have the skills to be qualified to take over these jobs and succeed in them. And how do we make sure that we retain their talent? Because how do we make sure it's an environment where they feel that they can actually thrive in? So understanding that, like, just ticking the box by saying, oh, we have gender parity, we're going to hire so many women or whatever, that doesn't necessarily mean that we're achieving the goal that they're after. We have to actually make sure that we're giving women the tools to succeed and to do well and to access these spaces in a different way. Awesome.
Ola, what are your thoughts on this theme? Do you like it? Do you considering you work with many different artists from different industries, specifically the women that you work with on an everyday basis, do you see this theme sort of resonating in any way, shape, or form with the work that you do?
Yeah, definitely. And there were a couple of key points that came out of the piece, one of the reference points that you sent us as well in our news piece around this hashtag and this year's theme. And two stood out to me. It was number 3, which is inclusion in the workplace, and number 6, which is visibility for creatives. And those go hand in hand in my industry, I find a lot. And similar to what Ginella said, it's about, number 1, being compassionate and also assessment of people's needs in various spaces and, with whatever they're pursuing. Working in the arts and in music especially, that's huge. It's inclusion in the workplace. It's listening to people. It's listening to people that identify as women and really looking at different perspectives and seeing how they can apply to what you're creating in your space, taking the time to listen, taking the time to assess. There's this concept around what I call the fold, bringing people into the fold, which is also the name of my podcast. And that is, to me, meaning, how do we kind of bring you in an inclusive way? How do we bring you in? How do we listen? How do we give you that space? How do we hold space for you at the same time? So, in my case, with a lot of the artists I work with, it's looking at, holding that space, enabling that space, assessment of what needs need to be met, or not even necessarily accommodations, but just How can you learn from those perspectives that are being shared? From a diverse perspective and experience, and really truly listen. And visibility for creatives, like just allowing that space for artists to really showcase what they do, how they do it, and be open to it as well, to see how that can transform on so many levels. And I've been really honored and blessed to work with artists that are changing many narratives. Nav, a lot of people that we've connected you with too, they're changing a lot of narratives.
I love it.
It's been an honor to see that and experience that.
That's one thing I find fascinating with the roster that you have in Indoor Recess is there's a lot of unique stories as to how some people are using their backgrounds to tell stories and talk about how they've gone out of those backgrounds to make a difference. And I think that's very much important, especially from a female perspective. One artist that we're going to have on the show in a couple weeks is Story, and even just her entire story, no pun intended, in regards to her new album and just the fact that she's a sex worker that's now trying to make a difference is so fascinating, because again it kind of removes a lot of that stigma that's associated with that because of just the reason why she had to do it, right?
Well, a great example is that she left the industry, left the sex industry to, get into the music industry, to realize that both are equally misogynistic and problematic. Right? Totally, So looking at those parallels and looking at how there's contrast but also similarities on both fronts and how to navigate them, and to give an artist the opportunity to tell that story through the music that they produce and to be able to share that on a global platform and to really, really hold that space and listen and say, no, I'm gonna put you forward. I'm gonna give you this time in this space. I'm gonna really pay attention and absorb what you're producing and sharing with the world. That's important.
Yeah, totally. And Heather, I'm sure you can relate to that kind of working in the arts and culture space and being what I like to call an entrepreneur, because I remember last year when I talked to you when your album came out, you were really doing it on your own. Like it was a lot of you, I guess, booking the sessions, making printing the actual CDs, going out and doing, I think I saw you at the Music Expo last year. I know you were doing your own little tour and you're really putting yourself out there. How have you sort of managed, or how have you found yourself going about sort of making that happen for yourself, especially when it comes to the fact that there are issues in the music industry that have to do with gender?
I have to tell you one thing, Nav. This is not an easy topic for me to talk about today.
Oh, yeah?
And I was like, why does he want me to come and talk about this? I can come in here and cheerlead for any arts event and promote other people and talk about them, no problem. But this is very difficult for me. It's really hard for me to step out of my situation and my experiences to talk about this because it's so close to my heart.
Really?
So first off the bat, I'm so inspired by the younger women coming up today. The young artists that I work with at Visual Arts Mississauga, Eldiana, very close to my heart. You young women, I'm so proud of you, and it inspires me. It makes me want to cry because it's just so amazing what you're doing to help artists. Sorry.
So
anyway, being in music, it sucks sometimes because it's not fair. It's not fair. And I continue on because it's in my soul. It's in my soul call. And people feel that large for me. So when I launched my first album, I just want to say, first of all, I've been making income from music professionally. I counted it this morning in the kitchen. It's 22 years since I was a teenager.
Wow.
Yes. So I can stand behind any person and promote them because I know what it's like, but it is difficult for me to do that. So I launched my very first album after years of being in music and doing 1 million shows and paying my dues. And those were all original songs that I had written. And, my regret was to not knock on Ola's door and say, this is my baby, this work I've worked so hard on. Can you please help promote me? So I think for me as a woman, I'm still such a work in progress, and it's hard for me to put myself first and to put out those opinions. And I love to see girls that are my age, older or younger, that can say, you know what, I am going to speak truth, and you're not going to like it, but this is how it is, and I'm okay. Because I still think of part of how I was raised and part of the culture I'm coming from. It's difficult to like, you know, say how it is and it's not fair. Like you just want people to be happy. So I've had many experiences in the arts, many beautiful, empowering experiences. And I've had a lot of awful experiences that were difficult.
Yeah.
When I was a teenager, like, you know, young girl in my 20s, living on my own, making my 100% income from arts, which I didn't know at the time is actually amazing.
Yeah.
Having a lot of #MeToo experiences with men.
Oh, wow.
And not even knowing that there is a name for that. There is something there. You can put words to those experiences. And so I didn't even know that, you know, like other people suffer from this or struggle from this. So just seeing the amount of growth that has happened for women in the world and women in the arts is so empowering. And I really feel that, you know, the younger millennials coming behind us really have an important place in the world and are making those changes. And all the time I'm inspired. So, you know, flash forward a year now that my album, I didn't have anyone helping to promote me. And I've got international recognition by the grace of God.
Amazing.
And the station in Barcelona, I'm the only Canadian artist that's a part of their, you know, international jazz celebration, is just a testament to like, I feel like if something's in your heart and your voice needs to be heard, God's going to work with you, and people are going to feel it. So I just think, you know, I'm so inspired by the young women here today, and I'm so honored to be a part of this celebration because, you know, it's not fair for women in music. I think there's a lot of organizations doing a lot of great work to help include us and to help us get empowered and to produce our own shows. People like Arlene Pakulin are doing amazing work in Mississauga with her amazing company that creates all kinds of shows. Wonderfest, thank you, to help give a voice for women. So I think that, you know, a lot of women, you know, we have to go out and find those opportunities and to support each other, definitely, because those negative things still exist. For example, I was at a Factor workshop on Friday, and the keynote speaker is up there saying, yes, it's harder for women, which is true. She's acknowledging that. But she says, you know, image is still so important. I'm thinking, I don't want to hear that. It's 2020. The fact that I'm hearing our image, and okay, it's the truth, but I don't want to be, you know, continuing that. We are musicians. I'm a songwriter the same way my husband is. The same way the other boys club are. I am too. Exactly. So it's like things like that. I'm like, man, we got to keep working. We got to keep focus on the positive, making change, because otherwise I'm just going to want to cry. Like these things still exist. And, you know, so I feel like I'm really inspired by young artists making a difference. I myself am continuing to get inspired and to help make those changes, but we still have a long way to go. Yeah.
And that's actually a great segue, because Ginella, I wanted to talk to you about something similar when it came to your start at CityTV, because there was a lot of news. Not only are you awesome, but you were also the victim of a lot of discrimination online.
Yeah, I mean, well, it's as women in a public setting, you know, there's so much more pressure on us to also not just be great and excellent, but also to look good doing it, you know, and being in television, you know, it's a very visual medium. There was so much conversation about me doing the job that I was doing while I wore hijab, right? While I was dressed the way that I dressed. And I think just in general, we're obsessed with women's dress, with what women are wearing. You know, you talk about me getting tweets about my hijab, but I also got tweets about my chipped nail polish. Like someone tweeted me once and was like, geez, if you're going to be on TV, at least get a manicure, you know?
They could see your nails on TV.
There was a close-up where I was on a phone and I was holding the phone up to my ear and my nail polish was chipped.
That's horrible.
And so I was like, you know, what does this have to do with my story? Like, does this impact anything any of my journalism? Like, if you have some criticism about the way that I've told this story, or, you know, something like that, by all means. But like, if you have, and this is how I treat any criticism about my hijab or whatever, right? Is like, that's your problem. That's not my problem, right? Like, you know, I'm here to tell you the news. I'm here to, you know, do my job and be a professional, and that's, you know, what I have. That's what I want to present. Obviously, you know, I do want to present myself professionally and look good doing it, but it shouldn't be the primary focus. It shouldn't be the check mark for whether or not I deserve to be here, right? 100%. Whether it's my hijab on my head or my nail polish, or whether I want to wear high heels or not, or, you know, like, I don't think that anyone has a right to tell me how to dress, whether it's the viewers, whether it's, you know, my father, whether it's the government, because that's another conversation conversation about the government telling Muslim women how they can and can't dress. So yeah, there's so much focus and pressure on women's appearance, and it's exhausting. It's exhausting.
When I was at the Factor workshop on Friday, the keynote speaker said, a man artist can roll out of bed, and this is true because my husband is a wonderfully talented singer-songwriter with a rough, rugged look. He can roll out of bed. We love Matt Zaddy. And he's the most supportive of women artists for sure. But they were just saying a male artist can roll out of bed with a messy hair, not shaven, grab that guitar and sing a song, and people are going to be like, oh, he's so rugged. He's so handsome. And the speaker said, and a woman, if she plays her guitar beautifully, a song she crafted and sings it gorgeously, not only is that enough, they're going to say, well, what? Isn't she going to dance while she's doing that? Yeah. Isn't she going to play the guitar behind her head? Isn't she going to she's going to light a candle? Shouldn't she have 1,000 candles? There's so much pressure on women, and it's so ridiculous. God. And not only that, it's we judge each other difficult. Yes. That needs to stop. And when I was young and I just started touring a few years ago, one of my colleagues said that to me, and I was like, ugh, I don't want to hear that it's harder for women in the industry. But there are some truths to that. Yeah. So it's helping us to make that change and even just appreciate each other more. Why I hate that I feel like our culture makes it so that you're trying to make it more competitive for women, and I hate that. And that's why I think Mississauga's music scene and arts and culture scene is amazing, because we have women that are no, we are going to back you up, and we have been
lift each other up.
Carla Casanova, all these amazing people, Arlene Pakul, Kat Leonard, so many of us have got each other's backs for years.
That's awesome.
Because we know what it's like out there, and we're no, we are building our own community. We are building the new. So I love that. That's how we make it. We make it such a priority.
Yeah.
There was an anchor who, just to make a point about this, right? His female co-anchor used to get lots of emails about her outfits or things like that, or she repeated an outfit, things like that. One time, he decided to wear the same suit for the entire year.
Really?
Yeah. And he's no one noticed, no one cared.
Wow.
I did not get one email.
The exact same suit every day.
The same suit every day on the news for 12 months. And he's this is what it is. I can wear the same suit every day and no one blinks an eye. And my female coworker will wear, and she'll get emails every day about her outfits.
Oh, man.
It's brutal. And you must have a thick skin that you're that's your problem.
You kind of have to.
Bless you.
Actually, Ola, question for you. And I think both Ginella and Heather have both touched on this, but how do you, when an artist that you're working with that's female that comes to you maybe asking about how should I sort of bring my art to life, or what are some ways that I should maybe alter what I do to make sure I get more attention? Because that's always a question that comes up, is what do I need to do to really get someone's attention? How do you have those conversations? Do you ever have artists that come to you that are kind of concerned about their image and feel that they need to change based on just something that they've heard maybe at a conference, similar to how Heather heard this week?
That's a really interesting question, Nav. I haven't encountered that too much, actually, and that which is a great thing, because I'm very blessed. A lot of the artists that I work with, they go their own way. They know their path. They trust themselves, and it often isn't about image. People often think that publicists are also image consultants, and about full representation of how you put yourself out there. We facilitate the process of artists being able to tell their stories, and in my my personal MO is how can our artists tell their stories in unique, meaningful, inclusive, supportive ways, what is the best method for them to be able to do that and to get their story out there. Obviously with care and effort around a positive aspect as well. But in terms of appearance, I haven't encountered too much of that concern around that, but I did have a point going back to appearance, especially on TV and in the arts and being on stage, and for the example that you shared of just the comparison between men and women and, performance and the appearance that you put out there. If we really, really paid attention to what the real focus was, in your case, Ginella, the news story.
The news story.
Or the music, the song, the performance, right? Why can't artists show up, considering all they go through on tour and all the energy? Some of them should be, everyone should be able to show up in their PJs when they hit the stage if they really want to. Or
Let me tell
sweatpants.
you, okay, when my first job, I was a video journalist in Kitchener, and so that meant that I used to shoot my own stories. So I was my own camera person. Okay, so I would go out with my camera and I'd show a place and be like, oh, people would be like, oh, where's the crew? And I'm like, I'm it. And so I'd have to set up the camera. So I'm carrying like 40 pounds of equipment, running around, and doing all this stuff. And then 6 o'clock comes, and I have to be on air now. So I'm like sweaty and disheveled, and like, but I have to take the time to now make myself look TV ready, right? And as you say, like all of the work and effort that I went through, it's like I should be able to just show up. And sometimes my mom would text me, and she's watching TV, so she wants her daughter to look nice, and she'll be like, oh, you weren't wearing any lipstick.
Man.
And I'd say, Mom, the more disheveled I look, the harder I worked that day.
Exactly.
So just know
There
that
you go.
if I have lipstick on, that means I didn't work very hard that day.
That's the spirit. That's the spirit. One of the things that I wanted to mention as we kind of get further into this topic of the day, and we are talking about the hashtag Each for Equal, is in the actual World Economic Forum website, they talk about gender parity, which is really just the equal opportunity for both males and females. And one of the things that came up was a graph talking about the global gender gap index ranking that the World Economic Forum puts out. And they mentioned that in 2019, North America actually stalled when it came to gender parity, so there wasn't really any improvements to make it better. I'm wondering, does that surprise you? Like, do you think we should really take these rankings seriously? Did you see, is there ways that you feel like maybe North America maybe took a step back when it comes to being more equal across the board when it comes to opportunities? Would love to get some perspectives, and maybe
it's shocking, but not.
Yeah? Okay.
It's shocking, but not.
Yeah.
It's upsetting that is the case, but not shocking. Maybe that's how I
Really?
would put
Wow.
it. Yeah. I would say maybe maybe I could offer something, for men who are listening. You want to be allies. We talk a lot about women and, what we can do. And men are like, well, what am I supposed to do? Or how am I supposed to deal with this?
Yeah.
Here's something that you can do. Tell your female colleagues how much you make. Pull aside your friend who does the same job as you.
Yeah.
Let her know what your salary is, because it's such a taboo, right? And women already are so afraid to ask for a raise, to negotiate, to ask for more money, to demand their worth, to say, hey, I contributed X, Y, and Z, and I'm really important to this company. Even for myself, I only asked for a raise after my husband suggested to me that I should.
Wow.
Because as a man, to him, that was like so obvious. What do you mean? I had my yearly review with my boss, and I said, okay, great, thank you. And I walked away, and he said, so, like, are you going to get a chance to talk about your raise? And I said, well, I don't know. And he's like, well, you should, And I said, should I? And he's like, yeah, you did X, Y, Z for the company, blah, blah, blah. Oh, okay, I guess so. And it wasn't something that I even thought to ask for, right? And, but I think that often if women were to find out how much their male colleagues made who were doing the same job as them, many of them would be shocked. And then it would also make them feel less like what they're asking for is too much, it's too crazy. And for the men as well, it's like, no one's going to take that away from you, right? Like, by sharing what you make, do you think that someone's going to say, oh, if we need to make things equal, we're just going to pay you less? No, like, that's not going to happen, right?
Yeah.
And I think that sometimes is the conversation around equality, or like, for things to be equal, are you worried that something is going to be taken away from you? No one's asking to take away from anyone. We're just asking to be brought to the same level.
Yeah. And I'm so glad you mentioned that, because that's actually, it didn't happen to me per se, but there was a conversation I had in my day job where me and a female colleague were talking about compensation, because, it is that sort of time of the year where you start to think about, raises and performance reviews. And she had a similar outlook where she was a little concerned about asking for that raise, because she was just worried about how it would be perceived. And I remember telling her, similar to Osama, your husband, about, hey, just go for it.
The worst they can do is say no.
Yeah. I'm like, you never know unless you ask. And, and I don't know if it had to do with the situation, that maybe because the person that she was going to speak to was a male, and maybe she just felt like it would make it for an awkward conversation. But I think there needs to be more of this type of mentorship around, and not just amongst significant others, but amongst colleagues, amongst workers. I'd love to. Is there any similar examples, Ola or Heather, that you can share?
Yeah, well, one thought that I had immediately was like, I don't know if this would be a solution or not, or maybe some sort of help to push everything into that shared level would be to have more women in the executive positions and roles,
For sure.
like at the front, to oversee everything, and going back to assessment of needs, and really understanding different experiences and perspectives with women, at companies, is having more women on those on the front line in executive roles as mentors and allies, to kind of put that gap a little closer together, or remove it completely, and to perhaps educate their colleagues on how things can be done a bit differently, or a lot differently. So,
and that education is crucial. And admittedly, I'll say it straight up, all of my best managers and directors have been women. And I always found that I work better with women because the empathy is there, and
empathy,
just the ability to have some honest conversations. And there isn't, I've been in situations where I've had a male manager or director or boss, and there's this machismo mode that shows up, or this sense of tough love that sometimes certain situations don't really equate it. And I think it's important to have a mix, to your point, up top, because again, there are different sort of perspectives, not just amongst equality, but approach that are needed in some of these roles.
Yeah, it's that transparency, that empathy, being able to communicate openly, with your colleagues and with your staff, your collaborators. That's really important. So having enough of that diversity in the mix, and diversity of all kinds as well, to ensure that everyone is heard and seen, and that conversation can be had.
Yeah. Actually, as we talk gender parity, Heather, I gotta sort of mention the example you brought up off air about the show that you're working on, and how a publication chose not to mention you in the actual article.
And I'm like one of the co-founders. Created the show. So from the ground up, and we've been doing the show for 5 years. So it's just like a little thing like that even my husband didn't notice until I mentioned. I'm like, oh my God, that's heartbreaking. That's my baby. That's an art. This show, we put so much work into it, and then it's just to not have my photo in there is a little bit of a slight. And those kind of things happen all of the time. And it's like, you add them up, and my husband, like, he's not even always even aware of these things until you say, like, hey, because music sometimes can feel like a bit of a boys club, right? And Matt's very like aggressive and like rah, rah, and like gets those gigs. And so sometimes it's just like, until you say to someone like, hey, you know what, wait up, that actually was our show or our contact or whatever. So it's just little things like that,
Yeah. No, it's a shame that stuff still happens, and it's interesting that North America has stalled as a whole. But I think this might be a good opportunity to kind of move on and talk about the next topic, and that's I read an article in The Guardian that talked about International Women's Day, and it seems like there's always a side of women, or in this case feminists, that feel like we shouldn't be celebrating International Women's Day, that we should maybe go beyond it. And one of the instances that I found this year was this article written in The Guardian about how International Women's Day is becoming a corporate Mother's Day, where now a lot of brands and a lot of companies are trying to jump on International Women's Day as a way to entice women consumers, or really try to sell something. And there's this worry that International Women's Day will eventually become almost like a Hallmark holiday, where it's something that you're obligated to do versus actually try to celebrate on a more everyday occasion. And one example was McDonald's flipping their arches to become a W. There's also other campaigns that were solely targeted to women. I think there's a couple of companies that are actually doing like TV commercials directed towards women during this time as a way to target, which in most cases it depends on how it's done. I feel, especially with my marketing background, like I think if you do it in a very grassroots sort of authentic way, it normally isn't such a bad thing. But we'd love to get your perspectives on that. Do you guys like companies and organizations getting into the conversation?
It has. Oh.
No, you go ahead, Ginella. You go ahead.
Anybody could take this.
As you said, I think it has to do with intention. Like, what are they trying to prove by doing this? I saw on Twitter that Shell was getting roasted for.
Oh, Shell.
They're like, we're gonna add an apostrophe to Shell, and it's gonna be Shield. We've solved sexism, guys. It's done. Congratulations.
That's it. Just an apostrophe. That's all you need.
Just add an apostrophe, and everything's gonna be okay. And it's like, okay, but what are you like doing, or what does that even mean? Like, what?
Yeah, I know.
I just, and that's what I mean. Is like, when I think about Women's Day, sometimes I'm like, what are we celebrating? Are we celebrating? Is that what it is? Is it an opportunity to talk about what we need to do, how we can do better? Because to me, it's hard to celebrate when you read me those numbers about gender parity. It's hard to celebrate, when we just last week, we heard that funding was cut for rape crisis centers, and then they did end up bringing it back. Gender-based violence numbers are up. We just saw, one of the only viable women candidates forced out of the U.S. presidential election. There are all these things that I'm like, I'm not sure what I'm celebrating on Women's Day. But maybe let's talk about what are the things that we can do to make, the society better for women. And I would prefer that. Like, what are we doing? What practices and legislation, what is Shell doing to make their company better for women? What is adding an apostrophe isn't helping anyone's life, I can tell you that much. So to me, I want to see genuine change, rather than just rah rah Women's Day.
No, and I'm glad you mentioned that, because for any organization or any company that wants to get involved in this conversation, to your point, they have to almost practice what they preach, right? Does Shell, and I'm not sure, and maybe I'm just posing this question, but does their C-level suite have a lot of women in there?
Exactly.
I don't know.
Yeah.
And my guess says no, because it's gas, right?
I actually read maybe this was last year, but I think it was in New York or in the States. It was there are more CEOs named John than there are women CEOs.
Wow.
Oh my
Think about
gosh.
that.
Wow.
Think about how insane that is.
That's horrible.
There are more CEOs named John than there are women in the U.S.
I feel like Heather wants to chime in on that.
Oh my gosh. Well, no, I just love what you were saying before about how women really truly need to be mentored so that we can succeed in these roles. And I don't know about you, but I love even just seeing Bonnie Crombie rocking it in the city of Mississauga. And
She's
just,
killing it.
I'm at this point in my life that I don't know why I'm just so in awe of women ahead of me that are mentors and their example. And you're going to laugh at me, but my ultimate number one woman after my mother that I'm so inspired by, you're going to laugh, but it's Barbara Streisand. And what an amazing
I'm not
woman.
surprised by
I know, but so ahead of her time.
Fierce too, right?
So fierce. And
She
back
owns
in the
it.
day when people are so old school and saying that, she wasn't attractive, which she's beautiful, by the way. But anyway, look at her producing films and writing her own songs and directing when everyone was like, no, women don't do that. And she was like, no, I'm going to do it. And I feel like we're so blessed to have leaders like that, and we need to encourage more of our female leaders, CEOs, mentoring them so that they can really succeed and make those changes. So maybe International Women's Day is just a good day to take an honest look at where we are and to have these honest chats. And like I was saying, I'm a little old school, so it's hard for me to be like, it's not perfect. That's really difficult for me. But you know what? It's so great to see you guys here. I think of how many women are going to be listening to you today on the radio, and after this talk, what you're going to do in your careers and the changes and the people you're going to help. So I think that definitely moving forward, mentorship is a huge thing. And, even finding mentors and at this Factor workshop, again, back to that, but they were saying just email people, ask, I'm not always the best at asking. That's a thing I always have to work at, but just email that person that you want to have lunch with, you want to have coffee with, and talk to them. Because, do you guys have mentors?
To be honest, not really.
Not really?
No.
Not really, especially because being in the industry that I'm in.
It's so fast paced.
And also the mentors that I have don't have the same experiences as me. I'm the first woman in hijab on television. There was no one else I could ask what it was like or how to navigate that. So I did have mentors, but they were white. They were men. You know what I mean? And so there was only so much that they could offer me in terms of mentorship, because they don't always understand the experience that I'm coming from or the challenges that I'm going to face that are going to be different than what they're facing.
But I'm assuming they were strong allies, though.
They were allies in those sense. And that's important, right? And that comes back to what I was saying before, where we want to give women the opportunity to have a seat at the table, but we also want to make sure that seat is a meaningful one, and that we actually hear their voices and we actually are open to hearing from them, because often it's just ticking a box to say, okay, we've got a woman, but then when she comes and says, hi, I think that, we should do X, Y, and Z, it's like, okay, well, just, you're lucky you're here. right?
Yeah.
And it's that kind of attitude. So, and often that leaves women and people of color and women of color leaving these industries where they are underrepresented because they don't feel heard and they don't feel like they are seen as a valuable voice in these places where they're often the only person who looks like them. And so it's not just about hiring or allowing them a seat at the table, but it's about making sure that the space is one that makes them want to stay, makes them want to flourish, and that they're not the only one, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely.
Actually, Ola, but you mentioned you don't have a mentor.
Well, yes and no, and well, I've actually realized. So I'm really blessed. I work on a team of an incredible all-women team, actually. So I do see them all as my mentors because we all learn from each other.
Yeah.
And in addition to that, going back to what Ginella said about learning from, I see it as learning from each other as well, not just bringing someone on a team, but learning from each other and really being open to understanding. I think if everyone understood that we can learn from our differences, learn from our similarities, and really just stay open to that, then I mean the world would be just a better place as a whole. But in this context, it's like really allowing that stage and that space for stories and experiences to be heard, and not just saying here is a seat at the table, or in some cases where there may not be enough seats at the table, then in the words of my good friend Rahel Bayane, bring in more chairs. Bring in more chairs.
Exactly.
So,
Absolutely.
Yeah, I know, it's good to know, because even like when I started to see brands getting involved in the conversation, I kind of had breast cancer awareness vibes where everybody was coming out with something pink, like pizza boxes, packaging, and to me, I was like, this isn't what International Women's Day is all about. It's not about a marketing ploy that, hey, we've noticed that our customers are getting smarter and more outspoken about some of their experiences. How do we as a brand, jump on this for capital gains versus, hey, like, we've had a women's CEO for 30 years. Like, let's showcase that and get her to be this role model that people can look up to. That's why, for me, being someone that comes from the business world, I always find these types of situations to be a little icky because it's
just rings hollow.
It does, yeah.
Right?
Because I've seen it. I've seen the behind the scenes. I've seen the conversations of some of these brands where they're like, you know what, this is really hot. We need to jump on it.
Women's Day is really hot right now. We gotta get on it.
Everyone's super woke, guys. We got to make sure that they have our drink in their hand when they're having these woke conversations.
Right.
Has your friend in New York ever crossed paths with Barbara Streisand?
Oh my gosh. You know what? Not Barbara yet, but she has with J-Lo and all the big...
So some of the New York mainstays?
Oh, all those big artists. Absolutely. Scarlett Johansson was in a play with her when she was 9 months pregnant.
Wow,
they were on Cat on a Hot Tin Roof. Talk about amazing women. Tanya is this amazing Broadway actor, singer, a playwright now doing her own show, Tanya Burl Torres. But anyway, she was 9 months pregnant doing this show with Scarlett Johansson.
Wow.
I saw her in the show. Then after I go around to the back of the theater just to go to Tanya's dressing room and see how it was and everything. So I go backstage and we're getting ready to go salsa dancing because my friend loves me and knows that I want to go salsa dancing in New York. So only a 9 month pregnant best friend will do that for you.
Yeah.
And then there's a knock at the door. And then we're like, who's that? And we open the door and this little head peeks in. And who is it but ScarJo?
Wow.
Standing there.
That's crazy.
And I was like, hi, Scarlett. And she's like, what are you guys doing? And I was like blushing.
Did you invite her salsa dancing?
I did. I have a girl
Did
crush.
you?
Yes, I was full out blushing. And I was like, Scarlett, we're just going salsa dancing in the Dominican neighborhood. Do you want to come? And she was like, I would, but I'm going for drinks with a friend. And she's like, bye. Anyway, she put a baby shower on for my best friend. And I was like, back off, Scarlett, get your own bestie.
That's hilarious.
But Tanya is an incredible friend. You do remind me of her a lot with an amazing, tenacious spirit.
Oh,
and
that's very nice.
She wrote a new play called A Play in Three Movements. And it's all about a woman's journey told with different biblical characters and different characters. But anyway, she's done it off Broadway and she's hopefully bringing it to Toronto this summer. She will be here. So an amazing Mississauga talent that's very, very big and a very important artist in the New York scene and with empowerment, of course.
Your next guest, Nav.
I know.
Tanya.
I'm gonna have to book her now.
Oh, you gotta book Tanya.
Okay, we're gonna book Tanya. But this is actually a great segue into the next topic I want to touch on when it comes to IWD, because obviously, Heather, you are a strong supporter of your best friend who's doing amazing things in Broadway. But there was this interesting study that came out courtesy of the Global UN report, saying that 90% of men hold some form of bias against women, which I think we can all agree is not surprising considering the industries that we all work in. But then there's also a nugget saying that 90% of women also don't support 90% of women also have some form of bias against other women, which to me it's so backwards. But I'd love to get all three of your perspectives if you've ever encountered sort of other women sort of telling you what to do, or maybe having a bias towards how you are in regards to how you approach your work, or maybe not giving you the benefit of the doubt, especially in today's climate. Maybe Ginella, will begin with you, being that because broadcast journalism is a very competitive industry.
Yeah, I mean, I think the way I understood that stat was like, particularly I was thinking about like leadership roles. So for example, we were just talking about Elizabeth Warren or like Hillary Clinton or female leaders, maybe women feeling like it's better for a man to be in that type of leadership role, or that a man should be the boss and they make a better boss than a woman, true or not. But I guess that, these are all perceptions that we all have based on the society that we live in and the things that are kind of fed to us from media, from all the things that we consume. So sometimes I think even as women, we convince ourselves that, oh no, maybe I shouldn't go for that job, or I shouldn't go for that managerial role, or I shouldn't run for president or whatever it is, because that's more of a man's thing. That's, I'll leave that to the men, right?
Well, especially because in broadcast journalism, a lead anchor, like growing up, when I used to put on CityTV, like you had Mark Daly, Gordon Martineau, like you had these men.
The voice, right? And for many years, women weren't in broadcast journalism because it was kind of told that their voices weren't commanding enough, authoritative enough for audiences to take seriously to tell the news, right? I actually have a colleague, my friend Malia Sheikh, who works with me on City News, and she had a tough time. We went to school together, and she would often get told that her voice was too high.
Really?
And that she wouldn't make it in the industry because she sounded too girly.
Wow.
And so that was something that she actually had to work on. She had to work on her voice because it was seen as a hindrance to her in the industry. And she's a fantastic journalist. She does weather. She does all sorts of different types of stories. She covers murders and she covers, the fair, right? Like she's so versatile. But like basically being seen as girly was seen as a negative thing in the journalism industry, and she was made to feel like she wouldn't be able to succeed because of it, but she did. So
wow. And that's interesting that you mentioned about this idea that we have that certain genders should play certain roles because of just past history or just what we're used to. Ola, in the PR world, I find that the PR industry, especially with my dealings with it, I would say is pretty diverse. Like you do have a good mix of male and female. Most of my interactions I've had with PR folks, whether it's through the work that I do on a daily basis or even through booking talent for various shows or even booking talent even for New Theory Radio, majority of the time I am sort of dealing with females. But how do you sort of see the support that you get, and do you sense that there's a lot of competition, or do you sense that a lot of females, because we were talking mentorship earlier, do you feel like sometimes they tell you to maybe tone down something because they feel like it's not going to work, or tone down other aspects of the way that the PR industry is run?
Interesting. Well, to start off, like going back a number of years ago, I started my career at 15 as a journalist from the heavy metal world. So I grew up in the heavy metal music community, which was at the time when I got it was and to this day I still work in male dominated spaces, whether it's with artists or just in general in the industry. But I started off in that space where it was male dominated. This was back when you'd go to a venue and there were only about 4 or 5 women people in the venue, and likely they were also, maybe they didn't even like the band, they were just partners with some of the guys that were attending, and it was a very isolating space. And at that time you dealt with a lot of misogyny and sexism, and later on in life ageism and sexism, starting out in the industry very young as a journalist and then into PR or digital media. But in the PR world, no, I think from my experience, it's just been more of a self-conscious thing of just past traumas that I've just been really trying to unlearn since my youth, actually. That's like something I've been really working on, and just maybe being self-conscious. Like maybe I shouldn't be extra per se, in the way I do something, but not necessarily from my peers, but something that I've just been personally trying to work on myself from my experiences. But yeah, that's one thing.
I mean, you just said something important is like unlearning.
Unlearning, yeah.
That like have been really ingrained in us about like our role, our place as women, how we're supposed to be, polite, whatever, and all these kinds of things. Like sometimes you have to really like take the chains off and be like, wait, no, like this is crazy. If I were a man, would I feel some way about saying what I just said, and why is it perceived differently because I'm a woman, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. And even one experience many years ago that I had, I was with an artist, and I think it was a producer somewhere at a media outlet, and they said to me, they're like, "Oh, are you the backup singer?"
Oh,
and I said,
geez.
"I'm the publicist." I was like, "What?
Are you the backup singer?
The backup singer?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm the backup singer."
Oh, man.
I've had that. Are you the intern? No, I'm the producer. Yeah.
Well, I'm just curious, Ginella, when you wanted to become a journalist, was being a lead anchor your goal?
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to be on air. That was something that I really wanted to do in whatever capacity.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, for me, often the barrier wasn't so much that I was a woman, it was more that I wore hijab.
Yeah.
And that was kind of the thing that was like, is that going to be a hindrance to me in my career? And am I going to face discrimination because of that? But I think more so than like obvious sort of, racism or Islamophobia or like stereotypes, I just dealt with a lot of like microaggressions of just like people, saying things and like that, like that, like, oh, are you the intern? Or, oh, but you're still so pretty even with your hijab. Or like, you're so articulate, with shock and surprise. So I dealt with a lot more of that kind of stuff, more so than like that was a bigger issue than like sexism.
Yeah.
But it's all layered together as well, right? Like a Black Muslim woman in hijab and then trying to succeed in journalism. There's a lot.
Yeah.
I feel like there's a play. There's a play coming, or there's a book coming.
Call
I can feel it. Oh my God, you
Heather's
are
gonna
love
write,
each other.
and then Ola's gonna push out.
Yeah.
There
There's
you go.
going to be a story
You're
there.
being inspired by
No,
to-
you.
Oh.
Your own story.
Yeah.
No, but with that said,
I'm working on the book. Yeah.
but it's interesting that like they get surprised.
Yeah.
Like, and that's what bothers me is like, and maybe Heather, you can relate being in the music industry is they probably get surprised when they hear that you
did the whole
your own
show.
tour.
Oh, I know. It's a joke. Like, it's ridiculous. 100%. And I feel like my early roots really helped to shape where I am now, because I ended up in community arts and I work professionally as a singer and whatnot. But I am so supportive of other women and other artists because of the horrible, let me say again, horrible experiences that I had early in the early 2000s in the musical theater world, which are banana-rama-ramas.
Really?
I worked professionally. I was 19 and I was working for Stage West, and I was equity member over in Calgary and doing professional shows in Toronto. And that industry, I was like, whoa, I am not cut out to be in this competitive situation. It was bananas how competitive it was, women against women. I hated it. I was like, I cannot be here at all. Like, just going for auditions, going for shows. There's only 2 roles. There's 600 girls auditioning. I was like, okay, God gave me singing talent and artistic creativity. I got to find a different way to use it, because I'm not competitive, and that kind of competition is so toxic and not healthy. So I'm so grateful to God that I'm in music and I'm in community arts, which is where my spirit is supposed to be, because we support each other there. And in music, you have to collaborate, because you're in a band playing together. She plays drums, she plays guitar. We need each other. You need the vocals. So it's a whole different energy. I might do music theater again one day, but those early experiences I had in like film and music theater were bananas and like very, very competitive. And I'm not a competitive person, and I don't want to perpetuate that. But that, maybe there'll be a book about that one day.
I actually, Jyoti, you want to turn on your mic? So Jyoti Banu is our fearless station manager / producer. I think you and I have had conversations, because Jyoti actually is like the main figurehead of the station, Saga 960 AM.
Hi.
I remember we had an artist named Bolu on a few weeks ago, and he was like in love, well, not directly in love with Jyoti, but in love with the fact that Jyoti was like such a boss lady here at Saga 960. You've dealt with situations like that where people don't like understand how you're the station manager.
No,
right?
they
That
don't.
you're the boss.
I'm the boss, and I've actually been told like, "Oh, aren't you too young?" And I was like, "No." What does age have to do with what I'm doing?
Yeah.
And something that you were saying that like not only do I manage Saga 960, I also manage my parents' business, and there has been times where I run the backboard for a TV station as well.
Yeah.
So anytime I have any recordings or a live show, I'm the one who's doing all the technical stuff, and there has been times where I have had to give instructions to religious Sikh men, and they just look at me and just like pretend like I never said anything.
Wow.
Who's this little girl?
I know,
telling me what to
exactly.
do?
And then that's not something that my dad appreciates. And my dad's had it's me and my older sister and my younger brother. And they've had so me and my sister, we have a 2-year difference. Whereas my younger brother, it's a 5-year difference. So my dad has always said, anything a guy can do, my girls can do better.
Yeah.
That sort of thing. And he literally, when I was ignored, my dad told him, like, she said that. She told you to do something.
Yeah.
She manages this everything, and I just happen to work for her. My dad says that.
Wow.
And
Big ups to your dad.
And honestly, and something that when people don't take me seriously, I'm just like, are you serious? Just because I am a woman and I'm not as, ageism comes in as well.
Yeah.
It's like, what difference does it make? If I'm telling you to do something, you better do it.
Have you ever had that
The
where people
door
are like,
is-
let me talk to the manager? And you're like, I am the manager.
I've had that as well. And right now my parents are in India, and people will come in here like, oh, I know your father. I was like, cool story. What do you want me to do?
My father would tell you to listen to me.
Literally.
And my dad, there has been times where someone will be like, oh, I know your dad. My dad will be like, okay, you know me, but you're dealing with her, so deal with her.
That's awesome.
Awesome.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
That's our weekly Jyoti Pangni.
Thanks, Jyoti. Happy
Shake it.
International Women's Day.
Yes, you too. You too, ladies.
Yeah. No, honestly, this is good. I'm glad that I'm surrounded by such powerful women. I'm kind of a little scared right now. No, but I think it's important. I think it's important that people do get put in their place. Like, it's crazy. Like, even when you think about how easy it is for the smallest remark to truly undermine somebody without you thinking about it. And my wife actually had that recently happen to her, like at a gym, where someone kind of undermined her, and not directly about her being a woman, but they kind of undermined her name a little bit. And it was just one of those things where, at the time we kind of shake it off like, cool. But then sometimes it just resonates with you. Like, no, that doesn't feel right. Right.
Absolutely.
So I'm glad that there's this mentality of wanting to call people out and move things forward and make sure that everyone's on this equal playing field, because I think we need it.
I think Heather brought up a good point too as well. Just the need to really kind of raise each other up as women and not see each other as competition.
Yeah.
Because that's part of it too, is often when there's only one spot for a woman on this board, or there's only one spot for a woman on this thing, then we feel like we need to elbow each other out. But I think we should be trying to open the door behind us, or pulling people up and saying to the room, now that we've been given this spot and this privilege, actually I think that more women should be there. I think that we should invite Ola over. I think that Heather should be here. All right, I think that so-and-so's opinion or voice is important in this conversation, and trying to like really raise each other up and encourage each other. I think having I know I definitely have my girl gang at work
you need one.
that you need, and it's like our place to like vent and talk and say, this happened to me, and what should I say and how should I deal with it, and to really support each other and come up with ways to kind of be an echo. So if someone has raised an issue and it's been dismissed, how do we then go and be an ally to them and say, hey, I also felt this way about this thing, or I also experienced this. Hey, have you thought about this? So that this person doesn't feel alone as, the woman, and especially us women of color, raising issues and feeling like they're kind of passed over or brushed off.
Yeah.
Yes, totally.
So just to kind of wrap this one up then, if you could provide any piece of advice to any woman listening to this that has a fear that their aspirations will be met with some bias depending on the industry that they're in and depending on who they're dealing with, because I think there's some prime examples here when it comes to the different industries that we've just talked about, whether it be media or arts and culture or music, that there are some gender-based biases that exist in certain opportunities that may deter someone from wanting to pursue it. But if you had a piece of advice as to how someone should deal with this bias, what would it be? And Heather, maybe we'll begin with you.
I think you said it today when you said it's not my issue. If
not my
somebody
problem, yeah.
doesn't like seeing you lead on camera, rocking it strong, so much integrity, that's That's their issue. And I think that's a big thing for me too, is like, you know what? I don't care. If you don't like it, I got to speak up. I want to be here. I want to pull someone else to be at this table. Yeah. You know, it's not other people's issue. And I think like really, it's our time has come. It's our generation. We're the change makers. Yeah. So we can't just complain on end. Is actually like, let's make those changes. Yeah. Let's bring up those things to, you know, bosses or people like, hey, you did slight me. I felt this way. I should have been at that table and I wasn't. My photo was not in your publication. And it should have been there. Yeah. You know, so I think that's the takeaway. And I think a lot of us are, at least I am culturally was raised not to do that, not to speak up and say, I have an issue. Yeah. Like that's something that's uncomfortable for me, but I'm getting better at it. Yeah. And I think that's the big thing.
Awesome. Yeah. Ola.
Amazing points. Starting off like seriously beautiful. When faced with challenges, as cliche as it sounds, don't give up. Focus on your passion. Focus on your purpose. Remind yourself that there's always space and a place for you in all capacities. Stay real, speak your truth, live in your truth, stay tough, but don't harden.
I like that.
That's a song.
Wow.
I like that.
It's a song from Bob.
I feel like a lot of collaboration that's going to come out of this group.
Write that down. Write that down, Heather. That's the next hit.
Nice.
Ginella.
I like to see that challenge as like inspiration, as motivation to do better. I like to surprise people. I like to shock people. So actually, when people say, "Oh, you're so articulate," and they say it with so much surprise, I said, "You just wait. You haven't seen anything yet." So I like to take it as motivation and to surprise people when they underestimate me. Right. So for me, I try not to let it kind of bring me down. That people aren't expecting all of these things from me, but I'm gonna, be even more than they imagined.
Amazing.
Wow.
Beautiful. This is awesome.
Is that a song too?
That's in your spirit. That's beautiful.
Pros.
Well, ladies, I want to thank all three of you for joining me for New Theory Radio. This has been a fantastic episode. I'm very honored to be amongst all three of your combined presences, if that makes sense. But this was fantastic. All three of you are amazing, and I'm very grateful to have you on the show. If there's any way that the listeners want to maybe connect with you or reach out, we will do another quick roundtable. Feel free to plug your social medias, any albums, any artists, any newscasts that you want to do, and then we'll take a quick commercial break from there. So Heather, we'll begin with you.
Awesome. You can find me on Instagram at Heather Christine Music, and my website is heatherchristine.ca, and my new album is Love and Color, and I would like you to listen to Our Time Has Come, a track about empowerment for everybody.
Yes, listen to it. Ola, what about you?
Yeah, Ola Mazzuca. You can find me on Instagram personally at Ola Maz. You can connect with Indoor Recess at Indoor Recess Inc. on Instagram, indoorrecess.com, to see our incredible roster of empowering women and artists.
Sick roster.
And regarding The Fold, you can check out my podcast about diverse voices, cultivating community connections, sonicfold.com.
Sick. And last but not least, Miss Massa.
You can find me on Twitter at Ginella_M. You can watch me on City News weeknights at 5, 6, and 11, mostly 11 o'clock. Monday to Friday.
I was going to ask you what the lead story is for today, but
today's my day off. So
the lead story
is Women's Day, probably.
Women's Day, yes. Thanks so much for joining us. I really appreciate it. We're going to take a quick commercial break, and we'll be right back here on New Theory Radio. Yeah. And are we good? Oh, we're on? And we are back here, on New Theory Radio on News Talk Saga 960 AM, as I get the head nod from our powerful woman station manager, Jyoti Banu, on International Women's Day. Thanks for providing your 2 cents earlier. I really appreciate it. But we're going to keep it going here on today's episode, and it is time for our community segment. And I have joining me in studio, he is the owner of Gravity Athletics. He is somebody who is quite the renowned, I would say, personal trainer here within the community. He's also part of a collective called the Trinity Collective, which is actually consists of various doctors, therapists, trainers, martial artists, and what they really do is really cultivate strength amongst their different clients and really provide them an avenue to really change their lives. And we're very excited to welcome him to the show, and that's my good friend Avi Sohi. Avi, thanks so much for joining us here on New Theory Radio, man.
No problem, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, anytime, man. You know, this was an interesting one. I'm just going to bring you close to the mic. But
I'm new to this.
No, it's all good, man. It's all good. You have quite the following on social media, man. Like, you have a fantastic following. Your content's very much focused around physical fitness and making sure that when you're embarking on this fitness journey that you're really being true to yourself. And you have a very holistic approach with how you approach things. And, you know, it's funny, now that we're into March, I'm sure a lot of people who had that New Year's resolution of, I'm going to hit the gym, or I'm going to get a personal trainer, or I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. By this point, they've probably gone out of it, because it takes, I think, about 6 weeks to get out of a New Year's resolution. What's been your strategy, man? Like, how have you sort of put yourself out there when it comes to the fitness game and making sure that, you know, with what you're doing, that you're holding people accountable when it comes to their health?
So, long story short, it's been like 8 years of building that social media following and just grinding it out, trying to figure out how I want to portray my message.
Yeah.
Because I found on social media a lot of people were advertising personal training in a way where it was just kind of like sex sells.
Yeah.
You know, showing their bodies or showing their I don't like to use the word client. I'll use the word student.
Oh, nice.
Because the way that we all view each other in our crafts at the Trinity Collective is that we're teachers. We're not here trying to like sell memberships or sell people like a dream that's not going to be attained. It's more about helping people build long-term lifestyles. So when you're talking about like the holistic approach, right? That's kind of where I took my spin, because I did the science background in kinesiology, health science, and kind of took my knowledge in my university undergrad and tried to apply it in a way to the community where they can learn things from me, and it becomes about them building a lifelong relationship with training.
That's good, man.
Versus, you know, just like, oh, I'm going to train for a month or I'm going to train for 2 months on their own, and they just go hard.
Yeah.
I find that most people, when they start on their own, they're just pushing, because that's what the media is trying to sell you, is you have to work hard in order to get results. But if you work a little bit every day for the rest of your life, that's still going to give you longer lasting, achievable results if you're actually kind of like on a mission of mastery or learning. You know,
that's a really fascinating perspective you bring to the table, because there's so many people that are like, I need to work out 5 times a week for me to be my optimal fitness level. And I remember talking to another personal trainer that said, you know, similar to what you said, where, you know, you don't have to work 5 times a week, but if you end up working out the 2 or 3 times a week, that's usually recommended. But you make those workouts, you know, you really think about them, you really target certain areas, you really get what you need to get out of them. That's more than enough, right? Is that the mentality that you find that works, or no?
Yeah, well, yes and no. Like training, when it comes down to it, at the end of the day, right? Like, people need to move, right? So I do believe that everybody can exercise a little bit every day. Yeah. But it doesn't need to be such a like punitive relationship with your body where you're just trying to like crush, like lift heavy weights.
Try to go hard,
even if it's 3 days a week, a split, right? Like, I don't want it to be viewed as, oh, I have to train 3 times a week. It should just be kind of like, okay, I want to train. I want to take 20-30 minutes for myself every day and do something, whether it's stretching, you know, some type of, like, I teach a lot of crawls, bear crawls, monkey crawls, a lot of like, they sound funny because I can't have a video to describe it. It's like, yo, what is this guy talking about?
We'll get you to make a video of you doing a bear crawl around the studio.
Yeah, I got you, man. I got you. Right? Because think about it, like, we're sitting in these chairs, we're rounded forward in these crappy postures, and then you go to the gym driving as fast as you can to get there, to rush your body through lifting weights and compromised body positions, and then you complain about aches and pains, and you're like, shit, like, what do I do?
You can't swear, sorry.
Sorry.
Yeah, we keep going.
So I was just saying, like, you know, like, when it comes to that long-term approach, you got to just keep the body moving every day. A little bit every day is going to go a lot more than pushing and punishing yourself for 3 days.
And that's the thing too, where a lot of people are sitting in one position for the whole day, especially if you work a desk job. There isn't much happening, and it's funny how, as I was thinking about my fitness journey, how one of the biggest sort of things that bothers me the most about my body is like your stomach, like your gut, right? Like I have a very love-hate relationship with my stomach. Sometimes I feel when I eat properly and I get enough cardio in, enough weight training in, I feel good about it. I've never felt amazing where when I'm out at the beach I feel comfortable with my shirt off, but I do feel good where if I'm wearing a nice shirt and I feel like it's not sticking out and everything looks uniform, that things are going well. But then there's the instance where, again, if it's a stressful day at work, I'm easily gonna go for a quick snack. I'm easily gonna especially if I need to do something at my desk during lunchtime, instead of going out for lunch, I'll stay and eat at my desk. Pretty much from a long period of 8 hours, you're just sitting in one area. You're probably eating. You're probably typing away, using that mouse. Like there's different impacts on your body that you're not really noticing because you do it on a regular basis. That people don't really think about the long-term effect of what this is happening on them. How would you describe some of your clients when it comes to these 9-to-5ers? Like, are they like how do you go about sort of teaching them about ways to get active outside of their 9-to-5?
Yeah, so the way that I've kind of approached training altogether is through learning from other like higher level coaches. So I follow a few that are around the world, and I've gone to a lot of workshops to try and pick and choose from everybody's philosophy. How do I want to teach this in Brampton? So basically what I've adopted is something called the 5 Ps. So the first P would be to prime your body.
Nice.
So before you start a training session, you got to prime. That's called like breathing, moving at the same time, trying to build that relationship with your breath and movement. Because a lot of times you're pushing, then you realize, oh shit.
Oh, you guess what?
Sorry.
Can't swear, man.
Oh no. You forget to breathe, right? Like you forget to breathe, and then you feel even more tight, and then you try to keep training and you get a cramp, and then you're like, you can't keep going through your workout. So it's like the first step is to just stretch. If you're sitting in a crunched up position all day, if you don't stretch at all, then that's just going to add to it. So priming is step 1. And then I teach my students how to prepare. Preparing their bodies has a lot to do with, just body weight holds. Like I was mentioning, the bear crawls, planks. A lot of people know about planks.
A lot of the body weight in regards to getting used to being able to...
side planks even. Because if you're sitting all day, you got, and you're talking about the gut, right? The gut is unactivated, and now you try to lift weights, you may risk hurting your lower back. And
those crawls that you mentioned is all about activating your core.
Activating the core.
Which a lot of people, when I started working out heavy, like when I started doing CrossFit, I didn't realize enough about my core. Like it's funny when your core gets sore for the first time, you start to realize, wow, I had no idea this existed. Especially if you didn't come from a athletic background, it's very easy to feel soreness in muscles that you didn't know that you actually had, right? Like that's the fascinating part of getting into it. That
is one of the first things that I'll hear from my students. It's just like, whoa, like I didn't even know I had this here or whatever, right? But again, going back to the crawls is like, think about how the last time you actually put your hands on the ground, right? When we're typing away and our fingers are tight and our wrists are tight, we got to be able to move our bodies effectively. So that's why I'll do that. Or just taking off the shoes and feeling what the floor feels like. So that's like the priming, the preparing at the start of training. From there, I try to shift people's mindsets to practice. That would be the 3rd P, right? Prime, prepare, practice. Whether it's a deadlift or a squat that you're going to do that day, you don't just start with heavy weights. You want to actually just work with the barbell itself.
So we got prime, prepare, practice.
After practice, that's when I will actually push.
Oh, okay.
Right? So most people, it's like, okay, push. Leave, aching and pain, and you don't want to train. Prime, prepare, practice, push allows me to put people in the right positions with their body to actually train effectively and get the most out of, the hour when they come see me.
Wow.
From there, I take it into play. And play is not really about, that training session in particular, but it's what I believe the end goal of training should be. For me personally, I come from a rugby background. So my play would be rugby. I wanted to prime, prepare, practice, push my body so I could play my sport. There may be people listening who do play sports and they could resonate with that as well. But at the end of the day, play is also just about experiencing happiness and living a vibrant life. going on a hike, playing with your kids, all those kinds of things. You want to be able to shift your mindset towards a goal like that versus focusing on, oh my God, my gut. You know, so when your mindset is more focused on the play aspect and just like having fun, the physical attributes and all those things that you want to get, they will come with time, because now you have a better relationship with training in the first place.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because there are people, when they hit a new workout regime, they do have a goal, and it's really a self-confidence goal in regards to, hey, I want to look better, or I want to get rid of my gut, or I want to get bigger arms, or I want to slim down. Like, there's many different goals that have to do with physically looking better, instead of mentally feeling better. And I think what you've hit with your five levels that you just touched on, prime, prepare, practice, push, and play, is that, to me, the way I take the play aspect is really enjoying what a workout is. And I remember when I was doing CrossFit, I came in pretty novice. Like, I wasn't as athletic as you growing up. I didn't play rugby or anything like that. I did play basketball with like the homies, like every now and then.
Oh, you got a Vancouver Grizzlies.
I know. I'm a fan. I'm a fan foremost for a former player. But it's hilarious, because it wasn't until I started to learn sort of the fundamentals of CrossFit, and and again, it came down to my coach. My coach literally saw potential in me, and like, he invested in me, and he wanted to take his time and show me the ropes, and I appreciated it, because I've always wanted to get into weight training, but again, I didn't want to just pick up a weight and hurt myself. I wanted to do it properly. To the point where I think before my box unfortunately had closed down, I think I was getting to that play aspect where now I really enjoyed coming to CrossFit, because I was like focusing on, building off of the gains that I got the week before, or like even, being a part of that social atmosphere and kind of helping, my colleagues, reach their goals, or even being amongst people that were pushing themselves and having fun at the same time and cracking jokes, but then putting in work at the same time. Like, there's that fun social element that I think people can really, really tap into, that will allow a workout to feel like less obligation to, hey, you really need to do this to lose weight, versus, no, I'm doing this to have fun.
Yep.
No, I like that.
And that's kind of why I've situated myself with the team that I'm at right now.
Tell us more about the training collective, man.
So basically, like, I'm working alongside chiropractors. So when I do get students who are having, back pain or other troubles with their body, it's easy for me to just refer to my colleagues and be like, yo, guys, like, what do you guys think about this? So we work on the back end on how all of us can, improve our individual crafts. But then touching back on that play aspect, having a jiu-jitsu school and a Muay Thai school and a boxing school right inside my gym is a blessing, man, because my students will see during our training session, they'll see people boxing, they'll see them doing Muay Thai, they see them doing jiu-jitsu, and be like, yo, I want to try that. And then they end up trying it. So they come in as a novice, like how you're saying, they'll train, 18 weeks, whatever, 2-3 months, and then boom, now they're doing boxing and they're no longer with me. And that's what I wanted my whole thing to be about. It's not about being with the trainer for the rest of your life. If you're with the trainer for the rest of your life, that's a problem in itself. You should be with the trainer, because like all trainers, most of us do hopefully view ourselves as like training wheels for people. The journey is yours. You're on your bike, you're riding. But the training wheels, that's us. We got to get people going. We help people build the momentum. And then once they have it, they should be able to, enjoy their life.
One aspect that's really playing on the community, but more so, actually, I would say more so in the community vibe, but in a way that's more readily available for a lot of people, are these the influx of these new gyms that we're seeing in the market, these franchise style gyms, and I'm not talking about the Good Life of the world. I'm talking more about the Ep56, the Orange Theories, big hit kickboxing, like these group training facilities that are popping up all across different communities. Even where I live right off of Lakeshore. There's like 5 F45s all down Lakeshore that are within sort of a 20-minute proximity from me, and it's crazy to see the popularity of this increase. But again, part of the promise that you get from these places is, it's a quick workout, fits within your schedule. You do it amongst a community of people, and again, if you're at a location that's franchised, they typically have a limit on the amount of students that can come and do that workout at a time, so you're seeing familiar faces. But then there's certain aspects of it that bother me, and that is, the recovery aspect. Like at a place like an F45 Orange Theory, you go there 45 minutes, you do your workout, and then you just leave. No one spends the time to stretch, to recover, to actually think about the workout, actually maybe nurse any injuries or anything that may not be feeling right. It's just a quick, hey, one and done. And again, I think a lot of people that do take part, and again, I'm guilty for being one of them, and again, I think the reason why I am pursuing it is just because of straight convenience to my current schedule, but they don't really think about the long-term effects or even just the whole purpose behind working out. It's more of a, hey, I'm gonna go bust a sweat and then I'm gonna peace out. How do you feel about that for someone that actually has a system in play? Like, what are your thoughts on these fads?
So it's good that you brought it up. For the record, one, I don't think it's a bad thing. Coming from a background in kinesiology, one of the main things that every course was talking about was the obesity crisis.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, we don't move. Like we're talking at the start, 9 to 5. People either go 9 to 5, they go home, or they go to one of these fad places, or they have all these other options for personal training or whatever they do choose. So at the end of the day, I personally do believe that, and support these places. I support these places and I believe in what they're trying to do.
Yeah.
But when it comes back to my approach, I don't think they're learning anything. And that's where the problem is for me, If it's a fad and they do it for, a couple months, that's great. But what happens after those couple of months?
Yeah.
Right? Do they stop altogether? Do they remember anything they did? And are they training at home? So I'm looking more so at the overall picture of health. And that's kind of where I see myself in this situation is I don't have problems with F45s. I think they're great. People go, they have fun, they have a good workout.
Yeah.
But it just kind of irks me where it's like, they're not learning though.
Well, and that's the thing too is I did CrossFit for about 2 years. I'm not saying like I'm a master athlete, but I'm better in tune with my fitness level in regards to I know when I need to scale a workout,
right?
Or I know when I'm capable of pushing versus different movements that I still need to work on the fundamentals.
Yeah.
But at an F45, you are doing, I would say, some CrossFit style workouts that to me can somewhat be scary because if I'm someone that has zero fitness background and I sign up for an F45 tomorrow and you expect me to do a banded pull-up,
and
I've never done any type of pull-up in my life, like you're putting yourself at risk, man, of number one, building bad habits, or number two, seriously hurting yourself.
The banded pull-up, that's always one that scares me a little bit too. Even when I'm setting it up with my students, it's like, man, please don't let go. That's gonna flick me in the face, or it's flicking you in the face. So like, man, like I think the places are good ultimately. But like even like coming from a trainer's perspective, like they're not the ones who own those types of facilities. They show up, they have a workout that's set up for them, and they just got to try their best to execute. So when it comes to that specificity and getting that kind of one-on-one care to learn to even know if you're doing it right, it's non-existent. But kudos to those trainers, man, who are making a career out of those places because it's tough, man. Managing a group that big, taking people through a big routine like that. There's a reason why I got into one-on-one training, and it's just because I did work in those kind of facilities in the past, right?
Yeah.
And it just wasn't for me. It didn't resonate with me, and I didn't feel like I was providing anything useful for people. So yeah, that's kind of where I am with all of that.
Totally, man. What, just to close off this segment, what word of advice would you give to anybody listening to this who's either wants to get back into a fitness journey or is looking to make their fitness journey not feel like an obligation, but to feel like something that's fun and almost like a hobby that can really allow them to not think about the physical gains, but just think about, the fun that they'll have doing a workout and the physical gains are just something that happens while you're having fun.
I think for most people, the average person, I encourage people to just think about the end goal. Like, what are you even trying to get out of training? In terms of a happiness standpoint, what makes you happy? Do you enjoy hiking? Do you enjoy playing? Do you enjoy taking your kids to Wonderland and not feeling sore for a week? Like what do you really want to get out of training with respect to that and not focusing on all the physical? Because when we focus on, oh, my gut, oh, my arm isn't big enough, when we focus on those things, it's easy to fall out of the habit because it's hard to make those improvements. You know, it takes a lot of time. So in a very general way, start small. You know, I encourage even my own mom. I'm like, Mom, 5 minutes a day.
Yeah.
10 minutes a day. Whatever the person can do and really carve into their lifestyle to do like a devoted 10-minute walk, even if it starts there. Maybe in a month that 10-minute walk turns into a 5-minute run with a 10-minute walk. 2 months later, boom, they add a staircase component where they go on a walk, they do a little run, they come back inside their house.
Yeah.
Now they're going up and down the staircase for 10 minutes. That's a half-hour workout right there, and that's enough to actually decrease your chance of having, you know, high blood pressure, diabetes, the two main killers in our community.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's like, from a health perspective, start small, but definitely slowly increase. Do what you can to the best of your ability and start there, man. The basics.
Awesome.
I got a lot of stuff that I'm putting out on YouTube to try and share it to the communities as well. So stuff that they can do at home.
Yeah.
Like those crawls.
Yeah. Hey, it's all about the bear crawls.
Yeah, man. All about the bear crawls.
Avi, man, thanks so much for joining us. If anyone wants to connect with Gravity Athletics or Trinity Collective, what's the best way?
Honestly, you can check out www.gravitятhletics.ca or www.trinityspaces.ca. I'm also on Instagram at gravitятhletics_Brampton. And then I got a link there to my YouTube, which has a lot of free content for the community, workouts, nutrition tips, all that fun stuff, even a vlog.
Awesome, man. Awesome. Well, thanks so much for joining us here on New Theory Radio. We're going to take a quick commercial and we'll be right back here on News Talk, Saga 960 AM. And we are back here on New Theory Radio on News Talk Saga 960 AM. My name is Nav Nanwa. I am your host, and this is the show we theorize on all things current affairs, pop culture, and everyday life. Special thanks again to my good friends Ginella Massa, Ola Mazzuca, and Heather Christine for joining me earlier to celebrate International Women's Day. It was a fantastic conversation. I'm very honored to be amongst all of them, and I'm very thankful that my station manager / producer Jyoti Banu also got to chime in on the show. I'm not sucking up. What do you mean? There's no sucking up on the show. I like to speak the truth on New Theory Radio. That's something I don't theorize about, is the truth. And then I also would like to give a shout out to Avi Sohi for joining us from Gravity Athletics. Great conversation on personal training and fitness in general. Like I mentioned earlier, we're in March now, so anyone that had a New Year's resolution that had to do with getting fit for 2020, kudos if that was your resolution and you're still doing it. But chances are there's a lot of people I know that had that resolution and have stopped in the last 8 weeks. So it's never too late to start a new fitness journey, and Abby definitely proved that with the conversation that we had. So again, if you missed today's episode, it will be re-airing tomorrow from 8 to 10 p.m. on News Talk Saga 960 AM, and then it will also be available as a podcast on Tuesday on Spotify and iTunes. So check out newtheoryradio.com for more details. But we also have some other things going on for the month of March. We have an event coming up. Yes, we are holding a New Theory Radio Mixer on Saturday, March 21st at Friday Roots in downtown Toronto. It is called Good Vibes, Good People. Information is currently available on our Instagram, but it's literally that. It's Good Vibes, Good People. Come out. It's a Saturday that's self-explanatory. We're going to have some good music. We're going to have some New Theory alumni in the house. We're going to have some Saga 960 alumni in the house. Jyoti Banu will be in the house having some fun, so you can meet Jyoti and you can let her know how you feel my show's doing. But it's going to be a fantastic time. We're going to have some surprise performances, and again, it's just a way for us to bring the New Theory Radio community together and really celebrate the show and the time that we're having here on Saga 960 AM. And I also want to give a special shout outs to John Liqueur for being our partner on the event as well. We're going to have Raj from John on the show next week to talk about and to get his theories on flavor profiles and why nowadays when it comes to food people are seeking unique flavors, because that seems to be the trend nowadays, is people really want new and distinct flavors in the food that they're consuming, and that's definitely relevant within the alcohol world as well. Next week we're going to be joined by two members of the Yelling Degenerates. Yes, the Yelling Degenerates themselves are good friends of New Theory Radio. We're going to have Darshan from the Yelling Degenerates on the show, as Jyoti laughs. And we're going to have Raj from the Yelling Degenerates on the show. The reason being is when we did the show originally with the Yelling Degenerates, we never had those two individuals on. And plus, Darshan just came back from a long Asia excursion. So I'm hoping he's feeling good. He was in many different parts of Asia while a certain outbreak was taking place, but I'm sure he's fine. But it'll be a fun show next week. And then also in 2 weeks, we're going to have, actually, Jyoti, do you eat chicken sandwiches? So my good friend Daniel, who I went to high school with, he actually started a Uber Eats chicken sandwich company called Ghost Chicken. So for our community segment that week, he's going to bring some sandwiches for us to try on the air. So like Nashville hot, he has one that's like Korean fried. So it's gonna be a very indulgent show. So I hope your stomach's ready. But you're gonna help us try some chicken sandwiches in a couple weeks, and we're gonna theorize about chicken sandwiches and why they're so popular nowadays. Did you guys hear about how in the U.S. Popeyes had a chicken sandwich that was like selling out, that people were reselling on air? Oh, sorry, not on air, online. Like on some of these resale shoe websites, they were selling Popeyes chicken sandwiches for like $1,000. Yes, it's crazy. Yeah, you can't hear Jyoti, but it's crazy. It's crazy. Yeah. Actually, Jyoti, did you have any chicken sandwiches in India when you were in India?
Actually, I went to McDonald's and I had a McSpicy burger.
Oh, was that good? Is that
It was so good.
Is that the Tikki one? The Aloo Tikki one or no?
I don't know.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Because they have like Aloo Tikki burgers there too.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
I think it's the McVeggie burger.
McVeggie. Okay,
Wedgie, yeah.
Wedgie.
They had a Maharaja burger too. It's basically a Big Mac, but substitute the beef with chicken because beef is not eaten in India.
Dude, I'm trying to think when I was in India, I think I saw that, but do they still use the Mac sauce?
I don't know.
Okay.
I can find out.
I feel like it'd just be like a McChicken, Big Mac styles. I don't know.
But it was good.
But when I was in India, though, and correct me if I was wrong, but my wife's cousins told me that Burger King was actually overtaking McDonald's. Like, more and more people were eating Burger King, apparently.
Well, you know what? I wouldn't be surprised if it was, because literally going to McDonald's or like Pizza Hut, Domino's is much more.
Domino's is huge out there.
It's huge there.
Yeah.
Like Pizza Hut, you'll barely see it.
Yeah.
But Domino's, like they have every corner they have that location.
Yeah.
But they make it a family event. Like, you know how we like get ready and we go to I don't even know where we go.
We go to Brar Sweets.
We go to Brar Sweets or I don't even go to Brar Sweets. But they literally dress up and go to McDonald's like, it's a family gathering. And yeah, sure.
That's crazy. Imagine dressing up going to Domino's with your family, with your entire family, with the entire junta.
People do that there.
That's crazy.
If we were to do that here, people are like, what is wrong? Let's have a family reunion.
Literally. Show wearing a suit and lenga to Domino's, see what happens. But this actually concludes this week's edition of New Theory Radio. We got a jam-packed schedule coming up for March, so stay tuned. And yes, go check out our event, Good Vibes, Good People. And if you want to connect with me, it's at @Nanwa on Twitter, at Nav Nanwa on Instagram. If you want to connect with New Theory Radio, it's at New Theory Radio across all the different platforms. If you want to connect with Saga 960, it's at Saga 960 AM across all platforms. Shouts to our photographer at Colorblind Photography _ aka Amit Nanwa. Shouts to Dusty Loops for the instrumental. And you will hear all of us next time. Peace.
Missed part of the show or the whole show? Go to saga960am.ca to find the podcast.
At American University, we don't just hope for change, we create it. We don't just dream of a better world, we make it a reality. With a graduate degree from AU, you'll access expert faculty and connections throughout DC to develop skills and experience to turn your passion into purpose. And that purpose can make all the difference in your career. Discover the difference a degree makes at american.edu/grad school.